It's a fullness right in the center, and it spread to my back and my right shoulder.
Romaine Green was hit by a heart attack. Calling 911 was a waste of time. She's alive because her mother and son drove her to the emergency room themselves.
Did the ambulance, paramedics come?
Yes, they did.
Okay, fine. Did you wake up by that time?
Yes.
Okay. So paramedics brought you immediately to the hospital.
No, they didn't.
No?
They did not.
What happened at that time?
They dismissed it.
You were not believed?
Not at all.
Uh-huh.
He asked what was wrong. And after I described it, he walked around and he said, well, maybe she seems to be paranoid. Because he said, I don't see anything really wrong. If it had been my grandson, yeah, they would have took over his word for it.
At St. Agnes Hospital in Baltimore, Dr. Raymond Barr decided he'd heard enough horror stories. In 1981, Barr led a counterattack on heart disease. Health professionals went out into the community to encourage folks to come to a special chest pain unit, no matter how slight their heart disease symptoms might appear. Dr. Barr's better safe than sorry policy with women patients is followed to the letter by the staff. The program quickly attracted national attention.
Being a woman, within 2 years, we've had close to 300 hospitals come on board with chest pain centers in 43 states. What this is a strategy based on the fact that heart attacks do have beginnings and that we've got to intervene. And the heart of the problem is in the community, and we've got to invite the community in with early symptoms and do something about them. We know it was your heart, and the amount of damage was minimal.
Thanks to Dr. Barr, Romaine Green will make a full medical recovery. With the emotional support of her mom, herself a heart attack victim, Romaine's psychological outlook is bright. But for thousands of women, especially those in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, recovery from heart disease can be a lonely struggle.
There was no place to go. I had no sense of anything that could see us through it or give me this sense of kind of touching base almost with somebody who understood. There was just, and I had no idea where to even start to find somebody.
If there is magic in a woman's heart, it has little to do with the ebb and flow that sustains the body. The wonder that separates us from our fellow passengers on Earth is the ability to give love and hope.
The first time I laid eyes on Tom, I knew I was going to marry him. First time I saw him. It wasn't love at first sight, I just knew it. That's kind of all there was to it.
I didn't have that thought. I had other thoughts, but not marriage.
Here in Chicago, the last thing Julie Prozich worried about was a heart defect she developed as a child. The condition is known as mitral valve prolapse, or MVP. Most patients live normal lives, but at the age of 29, Julie's valve became infected, producing blood clots that triggered a heart attack.
The day that I had the heart attack, my mom and I had planned to go run some errands. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I had the heart attack in the kitchen. I had it. And maybe a half an hour later, my mom came to get me, and I was still in my pajamas, and she said, well, come on, let's go, we're going to be late, we got stuff to do. And I said, something happened. And she said, what? And I said, I don't know.
She was very scared for obvious reasons, and I was scared too. And I didn't know how to act in front of her. Should I be the strong silent type and just be reassuring? Should I tell her my fears? Should I say, you know, I'm afraid you're going to die?
Tom's concern was not just for his wife. Julie was 5 months pregnant with twins.
It was hard emotionally because here I was pregnant with these twins, which, you know, for the first time you're going to have kids, then all of a sudden you're going to have two, is a big thing. Then all of a sudden you've had a heart attack, and then are the babies okay, and what kind of heart damage is there, and where does the whole thing go from there, and what do you have to do?
Doctors performed a cesarean section in the 8th month. Greer and Alexander were born free of damage, but Julie's defective valve continued to produce dangerous blood clots. Open heart surgery was her only chance. By now, the specter of heart disease had nearly destroyed her relationship with Tom.
We didn't talk, and if we talked, then we would wind up yelling. That was it. We communicated on nothing. And I know that a lot of it was me. I mean, I was so scared and so horrendously uptight over everything that he couldn't say anything that I didn't take the wrong way. You know, you don't care, you're not involved, it's not important to you, you go to work all day and I have to deal with this. And there was no way to talk about anything.
Just weeks before the operation, their marriage seemed all but over.
We sat down and really started to kind of logistically put together separating and just, you know, letting the whole marriage go and just forget it.
Because Julie and Tom faced the situation honestly, they were able to round a corner on what seemed to be a dead-end street.
I don't remember that day when things started turning around, but I kept telling her I'm not going anywhere. I love you, I love our children, and I don't want to move out of this house. We can make this work, and we tried.
Julie's surgery was successful. As the scars mended, her marriage became stronger. But the loneliness of the ordeal continued to haunt her. Prozich wrote an article about her experience for a woman's magazine. The response by readers was overwhelming.
They got a lot of letters through the magazine. People managed to locate me and mail letters to me personally and all kinds of things. And the response was nationwide. I had one letter that I opened one day, and after I read it, I felt like if you kind of held the envelope to your ear, you could have heard this woman screaming. She was so frustrated, and she felt so alone, and she was so frightened. Dear Julianne, my surgery was 9 years ago. I was traumatized for quite some time. I've never actually talked to anyone under 70 who has had heart surgery. I feel like I've had every cardiac procedure at least once, if not a dozen times. I'm not taking any medications these days, which is nice. I've had to smile, sort of, when I read about your night before your surgery. I, too, was positive I was going to die. I refused Valium, etc., as I thought I'd like to experience my last hours not under the influence. It was the worst night of my life.
Letters like those were the start of a heart patient network. It didn't take long for local women with similar experiences to make contact with Julie. Here in Chicago, they began Young Hearts, a group dedicated to helping younger heart patients with advice and support.
I went through 20-some years of going to cardiologists, going to doctors, and them not taking what I had to say seriously. Oh, it's nothing. Go home, lie down, do something to take your mind off of it. Like I sit and think about, that's the only thing I have to do in my life is sit and think about what's going on with my body. And right now I feel like I finally have a grip on my condition, and I'm trying to not think of myself as sick and trying to lead the most normal life that I can.
So, with everything that's happened now, the point you're at now, do you feel like you're starting to get your life back? Like maybe it's...
Young Hearts now has both men and women members in nearly every state. Julie is currently developing a national database to help patients find each other and get together for one-on-one support.
Good afternoon, Young Hearts.
I took his.
You took his. You got it?
Somebody had.
No, it's Gers.
Hey!
It's Gers.
Hope, advice, and friendship were born from a Chicago homemaker's lonely struggle.
Okay, let's pick from Gers.
Perhaps the idea that there is magic in a woman's heart is more than just a pretty thought.
I'd like to send a message to younger women in this country. If you have a family history of heart disease or hypertension, if you smoke, if you're not getting regular checks, especially for pap smears, if you don't know the downside to birth control pills, you better learn about these things. You better get some information from your doctor.
Sure, you can blame heart disease on genetics. You can point the finger at our medical system, too. But in America, many women are their own worst enemies.
The thing that is really good here is the chicken fried steak.
Cardiovascular disease is not inevitable. In many cases, it's simply the product of what we eat, drink, and inhale. Americans are the fattest people on the planet. Greasy food set us up for a big fall. 1 in 5 middle-aged American women is 30% overweight. They will suffer 3 times the cardiac crises as those who are lean. What doesn't wind up as love handles collects in our arteries, and we're not just talking about solid food. Alcohol is fattening, to say the least. An average mixed drink weighs in at 300 calories. 3 of them per day can raise your blood pressure significantly. Unfortunately, women are using and abusing alcohol in record numbers.
Alcohol is a drug. It is a lethal drug. And I think that women in particular are subject to secret drinking, and we know from our epidemiologic studies that they're drinking more and more.
Along with drinking, women continue to smoke. About 27% of all American females use tobacco. Since 1965, only about 6% of us have managed to quit. Within seconds of that first puff, carbon monoxide chokes the oxygen out of your bloodstream, while nicotine shrinks blood vessels. Smoking encourages blood clots and injures the lining of the arteries. If slow suicide is your thing, cigarettes are the weapons of choice.